Hi, this is Guy Hebert, former NHL goaltender, and I am the mask.
Yes, and I'm Kent French. Current broadcaster, former NHL broadcaster. I am the mic in this equation, and this is a podcast we like to call The Mask and the Mic. And Gibo, we're kicking things off with a team that is near and dear to your heart.
That's right. Yeah, I am rocking some swag. It's not the championship swag yet, but Hamilton College Continentals, men's Division III ice hockey national champions in a thrilling 2-1 OT victory. We'll talk more about that when you listen to the podcast, but that's the teaser.
Also, some drama happening in the National Hockey League with just about a week left in the regular season. We'll touch on that. And how about a 20-year-old getting a guaranteed $95 million deal in baseball without playing a big league game? That and much more coming up on a show we like to call The Mask and the Mic. And Gibo.
And good for us.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of The Mask and the Mic. Of course, The Mask and the Mic are back with you, that being Guy Hebert and Kent French. Gibo, there's no question where we're jumping off here in this podcast today based on what you're wearing and what's hanging behind you. The Hamilton Continentals Division III men's NCAA ice hockey champions. Congratulations on the first ever championship for your alma mater.
It's really an incredible moment for the school. Hockey's existed at the college for 100 years. When I went there, we weren't actually able to compete in the NCAA bracket because of the commitment to excellence in education. So part of the NESCAC.
You say that, the commitment to excellence in education. Yeah. Therefore, we weren't winning hockey games.
Yeah, so you could compete, which is the ECAC, which is the Eastern Collegiate Athletic Conference. So you could compete in that level. But even if we had won that back when I played, you couldn't advance because of the NESCAC, which is the New England Small College Athletic Conference.
Thank God you told us what that was, NESCAC. Yeah, what the heck? Oh, my God.
So, but now in modern times, they're able to compete in the NCAAs. And yeah, I mean, in absolute thrilling fashion. The whole season was great. They had a tremendous season. Playoffs for the NESCAC were great. And then NCAA ride was thrilling, and nothing better than, and I know I've told a lot of people, if you follow me on Instagram, you've seen tons of posts about the fact that it was a dream matchup for me and my family. Not only did my daughter go to Hobart and William Smith, Hobart was the reigning champion, 3-time reigning national champions, 3-peat. They were looking for a 4-peat. And of course, my wife and I both went to Hamilton. So as Hamilton alum, it was a little bit of a house divided, and Hamilton came out thrilling 2-1 OT with about 3 minutes and 16 seconds left. Frenchie, I know you've seen the highlight goal, but Luke Chore creates a 2-on-1 bad pinch by the Hobart defenseman, comes down 2-on-1, slides a beautiful pass under the sliding defenseman, and a rookie, a freshman, Curtis Sturgeon, freshman, 1 goal on the season,
wow,
collects the pass and beats the goaltender, Damon Beaver, the Sid Watson Award winner, which is the award for the best college hockey player in Division III.
Really?
Beats him for the game winner. And it's something like, you think about Team USA beating Canada in the golden goal with, USA being able to come out on top in the thrilling overtime. It was just like that, Frenchie. I mean, I was jumping up, my wife's screaming here at our house, and it was a tremendous moment. I mean, I always say, the effort and hard work and determination and the commitment at Division III college hockey or Division III sports in general is really no different than Division I. And, you think about trying to balance your academics and your athletics, and, the kids play for the love of the game. And it was just an incredible moment. Rob Haberbush, the Hamilton coach, he's been building this program for over a decade, and, they've gotten to a place where now they can compete at the national level. So it's tremendously proud from an alumni standpoint, former hockey player, just to see them have that moment where they could, really enjoy, celebrate together, and a lot of texts and messages going throughout the Hamilton alumni community. It's been a special moment. It really has.
So
And
that being
hey,
yes.
listen, I keep forgetting. How do I forget about the goaltending? And you're so excited about the game-winning goal because it was so fabulous. But listen, Axel Reed,
What a name.
is it? I mean, it's fantastic.
Yes.
40 shots, 39 saves, MVP of the NCAA tournament. So congratulations to Axel. Phenomenal job in the pipes. And I mean, there were some saves that he made throughout the course of the game that every goalie we talk at any level, NHL level, that you have to make. You have to make that one or two saves that you're not supposed to make. And he made several of those to keep the game tied at 1, so that they had a chance to go to overtime. So, it was a great team effort.
Well, you know how difficult of course, know how difficult it is to get the National Hockey League, coming from a D3. What were there some future NHLers on the ice in that game that you think?
It's so hard to tell. I mean, I think, every kid dreams about getting that opportunity. And, when you go to Division 3, you're not really, you know, the opportunity's not there as much as being looked at in the Division 1 ranks. And I think that all those scouts are looking everywhere. And whenever I have a chance, I'm always bringing up, players to scouts in the Ducks department. Ironically, ran into Dave Taylor last night, who's a
Really?
Clarkson grad, and I was talking to him about a couple players and just said, hey, these kids always merit, a look. And so any chance I get to try to give these kids, just for someone to take a look, I always try to do that. But like Frenchie, you just never know. I am a shining example that it can happen. So, I know most of the kids, or I would say the majority, if not all kids that are at
Yeah.
that level, want to go and complete their education and then have a chance to do something after graduation.
So you mentioned at the outset this was certainly a family affair, but it was a family internal little conflict going on there because your daughter
Yeah,
Madeline
conflict
went
of
to
interest. Yep.
went to Hobart, right? So that being said, was she on FaceTime during this? Did she have as much investment in this game as you did, or was she happy for you guys, happy for her parents?
We were not on FaceTime. She was well aware of the game going on, and I think she tuned in back on the East Coast. And I think that certainly we in this household, my wife and I, had a more vested interest. Trying to get the first one ever, right? Trying to get that first one ever is
She's won
more
3,
important.
right? The last, and I
Yeah.
mean, they've been on a roll, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, that team, Hobart, was 30-0 this
That's
season
insane.
going
That's
into
insane.
the championship game. Yeah. So they've got a great program. Ironically, I got recruited when I was going to go to college by Hobart. And,
No way.
it was a program much like Hamilton back in the day, trying to grow the program and try to make, great steps in getting players that could, kind of be foundation of where the program was going to go. And so it's very ironic that I got recruited there, decided not to go. Later in life, my daughter goes there. And then, of course, just now having that head-to-head matchup was, was just so sweet, certainly for me. And, I think my daughter certainly would get over it quicker than if Hamilton had lost. I think I might have
I
carried that
totally agree
baggage
with
for a
that.
while.
I agree with that. I totally agree. So back to D3 and these kids who have an incredible amount of talent. And a lot of these kids, as you mentioned, they want to be NHL hockey players, and as we all know, development happens at different times for different people. So they go to a
Yep.
D3, and all of a sudden, hey, they start developing, become a legitimate prospect. But outside of someone like you, an alumni who goes there and throwing out names and trying to knock on some doors for these kids, how does one from a D3 school, get discovered? What type of path do they have to take that is a little more unconventional maybe than some of these other kids?
Well, that's a great question. And I think that, because of modern technology, like scouts don't necessarily have to be in the stands. And I think if they hear
Yeah,
about a
good
player,
point.
there's enough content that's available through social media, websites of colleges, and, being able to attracts certain players. So I think that if you're, if you're a good player at any level, I think that, there are people watching. There's coaches that are talking to, scouts that they know. And of course, any opportunity, I think, for a coach to be able to pump up a player of his, I think they certainly try to do it. I mean, these kids are coming from all over. There was some kids from, certainly Europe, Scandinavia. It's global, not just in the NHL. It's global in college hockey. It's global, not in Division One, just Division One. It's also global now at Division Three. And I think one thing you're going to see that I think is going to be really interesting is how competitive. Listen, all these kids are good players. I mean, sometimes it's the size. Maybe we're a little too small to play Division One. Maybe it was their skill level was just slightly below what was required when Division One schools are recruiting. But these kids can all skate. I mean, they all have good level of skills. There's not like a drop off. Like when I played, there was a drop off probably from your first and second line to your third and fourth lines.
Yeah.
And the guys who are on the first line or whatever certainly could have played Division One. I think now there's a whole host of these kids, all these players, had given the chance or the opportunity, they probably could have played Division One. They might have said, "Hey, I might not play a lot in Division One, so I want to go and be able to play for 4 years." And so that's why I think Division Three sometimes is very attractive. They get a great education and get a chance to play all 4 years or a good portion of those 4 years. But listen, they played junior hockey, whether it was in Canada or U.S. A lot of these kids are still going to college at 19 or 20 as freshmen. So they're older, they're stronger. And I think that's making the game much better for Division III college hockey.
All right, Coach Rob, you mentioned you're not wearing any championship merch. We touched on this before we came on. So, we're several days now past from this championship. Several, I don't know, 3, 2 maybe. I mean, it's not a lot, but it is time to have something UPS'd or FedEx'd to the Hebert household, I think, considering your jerseys in the rafters there. So when are you getting your championship merchandise? And maybe more importantly, where will it be placed in the Hebert household? Is there a mantle set aside for the Hamilton Continentals?
Well, I will wear it proudly. First and foremost, when Coach Rob Haberbush, if you're out there listening to our podcast,
come on, Coach.
Or any of the other alumni, which I've actually gotten some great text messages from alumni saying like, "Hey man, I'm in the car driving and love listening to you and Frenchie. So, keep pumping up Hamilton and keep the stories flowing." So we will continue to do that happily. But yes, when, I won't say if, when I receive my championship swag, I will be wearing it around town. And of course, at some point, it'll be prominently displayed somewhere in my office.
All right. I cannot wait. to see it. Yeah. This is awesome.
I might have to ask for 2 so I can get Frenchie wearing some of the swag.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I'm fine.
Hey, why not?
UC Irvine did not have a hockey team. Still does not have a hockey team, as far as I am aware. So yes, I'm all in on Hamilton Continentals. I love the Continentals, by the way.
Yeah.
I think that's
it's one of the greatest names in all of sports, right
fantastic, there. Fantastic. All right, well, let's keep with the hockey theme here. And there's been a lot of movement in the National Hockey League. I mean, of course.
Yes.
We know about the Anaheim Ducks, and we've touched on them as far as the run they're making this year, looking to snap a 7-year drought in the postseason. Looks like they are well on their way, and they're currently leading the Pacific Division, but also in the Pac. Gibo, Vegas Golden Knights. A lot of news coming out of Vegas over the last couple days. When we are taping this podcast, Bruce Cassidy out as head coach with 8 games left in the regular season. When he was dismissed of his duties, they were sitting 3rd with 80 points, well into a postseason spot. About 6 points over the Kings, holding on to that 3rd spot in the Pacific. And here comes John Tortorella. My goodness. He's coming in, his 6th team, I believe, 24 years coaching in the National Hockey League. You mentioned Team USA Milan. He was the assistant coach in Milan. Give me your thoughts, Gibo, of dismissing Bruce with 8 games to go, currently sitting in a postseason spot.
Wow. I mean, yeah, I mean, like, listen, the Vegas Golden Knights are completely unapologetic about how they run the organization, and winning is a must and at the forefront of what they want to accomplish. Am I surprised? I'm shocked in one sense because, one, they have an excellent coach who's done nothing but bring them a championship, which they brought him in to do. And so Bruce Cassidy certainly filled that promise.
Yeah.
They went out, they got Mitch Marner, spent 90 plus $1 million on him. They made some other moves. So they're well positioned, to make another run at the Stanley Cup. So are you asking me if you think that because they're third in the Pacific that they have not achieved what they wanted to achieve? I think there's been pressure on them that they should be first or second. I mean, I think that every team wants to finish first and then have home ice advantage, and I think that's a big key. I'm not behind the locker room doors, but what I can surmise from this move is the fact that, listen, everybody knows what John Tortorella brings, right? He brings accountability. He brings that fire and passion to the game. And I actually said on the Ducks pregame show when we discussed this is that he is not afraid to sit superstars. And superstars have to toe the line. And he expects 100% effort, especially in the defensive zone. And so when superstars are maybe a little lackadaisical, I think that he's not afraid to put him at the end of the bench or put him up in the press box to prove a point. And I think that the players have been put on notice. And I think with Tortorella running the show now, I mean, he knows what he has. I mean, he's got an all-star cast of players. I think the Vegas management just said, we need that extra push here because we want more accountability with our players. And it was interesting because I think I read something about the goaltending and that the goaltending, we don't like how they're playing, but we love our goalies. So that's that passive aggressive statement of, hey, we love you guys, but you're not playing up to the ability that we expect from you. And that's a collective for their goaltending unit. So what is John Tortorella going to do? I mean, I think he's going to do what he's done. I think the short term, I think it's actually a great move because I think he's just going to be that motivator of saying, hey, you need to take this opportunity. You don't know how many opportunities you get to try to win the Stanley Cup. We have a window right now. Coaches and management talk about window of time to win a Stanley Cup. They're getting long in the tooth with some of their players. I mean, of course, Jack Eichel's not old and on the way out, but there are a number of players in the supporting cast. Mark Stone is a guy who, listen, his window is starting to close. And there's other players that if they don't win it now, there's a lot of pressure on Vegas. So I think that this is a move that it's either going to be the greatest move and they will have a great run through the playoffs, or it's going to be a move people will question and say, yeah, maybe Bruce Cassidy wasn't the problem.
Yeah, I find it so intriguing, obviously, and so much. There's so much there to talk about. You mentioned long in the tooth. They have the third oldest roster in the National Hockey League.
Yeah,
and they're one of the most aggressive, if not the most aggressive franchise in all sports. I mean, they go out and they make moves. The deadline, this past deadline was quiet in terms for Vegas. They didn't make a huge splash like they have done in the past. Cassidy just a few years removed from winning a cup in 23 with these Vegas Golden Knights. And I also find it interesting too because they don't have a first round pick this year or next year. A lot of their top prospect pool is pretty much bare because they've gone out and made these deals. So I agree with what you're saying is the time is now, but it seems like the way this franchise is run, the time is now every single year.
Yeah.
And Bill Foley, the owner, when the Knights first came on, said playoffs in 3, cup in 6. Well, they went playoffs in 1. They went to the finals and they got a cup in 6. Yeah. So they have that mentality from the top down. So my question to you is, as an athlete, there is a lot of pressure in that environment to win and win now. And it seems like Bill Foley and those Vegas Golden Knights are going to continue with this mentality moving forward. I mean, this aggressive win now mentality. What is that like in the room? And Mark, you mentioned Mark Stone. He was quoted as saying the room's gone stale after this deal, right? So you don't want that. And Tortorella is known for being a fiery coach. He's a yeller. You mentioned he sits stars, but that runs dry after a while. So maybe in this short little bubble heading into the postseason, this can work. But as a player, being in that environment every year, is that what you want? You want that pressure to win every single year?
Well, I think players, it's kind of like back in the day when the Detroit Red Wings in throughout the 90s were kind of the team to beat, right? Every free agent that wanted to try to chase Stanley Cup was looking to sign with Detroit. I mean, you can go through the litany of players: Brendan Shanahan, Brett Hull, Dominic Hasek, Curtis Joseph. I mean, like the list kind of goes on because they're like, okay, where can I go to have the best chance to win a Stanley Cup? Well, I think a lot of teams have thought, well, Vegas is kind of that place for me. And I think for a lot of reasons, possibly tax
No state
implication
income
reasons,
tax.
right? That Mitch
I know.
Marner looked at Vegas as being a landing spot. So, you know, listen, NHL players thrive on pressure. I mean, your goal and being able to put your name on that Stanley Cup, I mean, is the thing that you dream about as a kid. And you're playing out in your driveway or on the pond, and you're always playing in that moment, emulating that you're scoring the game-winning goal to win the Stanley Cup or make that huge save to win the Stanley Cup. So, I mean, I think inherently we love the pressure. You know, I think the interesting comment is that what's going on in the locker room, and I think stale is probably a perfect word, right? I think
Yeah.
guys got complacent. And, you know, again, I've never played for some of these coaches, so I don't know how they try to work that room. You know, like how do they motivate? You know, Tortorella is obviously known just because he doesn't hold back in any press conference, right? He tells you exactly what he's thinking, and what he tells the media is exactly what he's saying to the
He's
players.
must-see
So,
TV. From a
yeah,
media standpoint,
yeah,
we love tuning in to John
yeah.
Tortorella, yes.
And so my thinking is that, you know, I think the guys are going to look in the mirror and say, okay, listen, he's going to be brutally honest with my performance, and he's going to push me to be better. And for an athlete, I think, you know, going into the playoffs, and listen, I had this conversation the other day with a friend of mine. He's like, at what point do good teams just coast in the last, you know, 10 or so games, 20 games, if they know they're in the playoffs? You know, are guys really aware that they are not playing at playoff tempo because they're saving it for the playoffs? And I said, yeah, there are teams and there are players that know that, hey, listen, we're gonna be in the playoffs. Does it matter if we finish second or third? Probably not. I just need to be focused for the playoffs. So I think sometimes that's a little bit where you get, like, you know, say the Ducks are all in, fighting for every point. They want to win the Pacific. They want to keep what's going good into the playoffs, but they are playing at that high level right now. They're
Yeah.
playing almost at that playoff level. So can you sustain that or even play at a higher level, because your opponent's going to play at a better level once the playoffs start? So that's whatever the catch 22 in it all. So I think that teams like Vegas have been kind of just sauntering along, trying to get to the playoffs, and then feel like at that point they can turn it on. And are they a good enough team to be able to flip that switch? I know a lot of coaches are very fearful of that. Say, hey, you just can't flip the switch when it gets to be the important time. We want to go in with a little bit of momentum. And I think right now, I think you're going to try to see that from Vegas, that they're going to put a little better effort out there in the ice for John Tortorella.
Well, hell yeah. If you want your ice
Yeah.
time, as you mentioned, with Torts coming on board, absolutely. 5-10-2 since the Olympics are the Vegas Golden Knights. So yes, to support the point you're talking about as far as just trying to get in. And the Kings, as I mentioned, 6 points back, anything can happen. I mean, if the Knights continue to falter and the Kings find some sort of momentum and a run, that script could flip very, very quickly. My
Well,
two cents is
and
go
not
ahead.
just the Kings, right? And not just the Kings. I
Oh,
mean,
right, right.
Seattle. I mean, there is a group
It
of teams that are
it's jam packed. It's a log
yeah,
jam. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, this thing could, and I think that's part of it too, is that they're not a lock. I mean, yes, they're in a postseason spot, but if they falter 8 games, a lot can happen. Um, and yeah, this is a team that expects to win every single year. I mean, too, I was looking at the history of coaches for Vegas, and Gerard Gallant, after taking the expansion team to the final 2 years later, he was fired. Peter DeBoer, who took him to the Western Conference Finals 2 out of 3 years and was there, he was
Yeah.
gone. So the expectations are there, and I think not being, ever being a professional athlete and being in these rooms, but I'll tell you, your window, as you know, to play in any league for any sport is limited, and you have a window and you want to win. And if you're with an organization that is putting its best foot out there and they want to win every single year, I mean, that's pretty damn cool. Like I would imagine you want to
Yeah.
be
It's
part of that. But
sure.
Gibo, the coach is on the hot seat every year. But hold on, what about the players now too, right? Everyone's accountable. Then they could be shipped
Yeah.
out.
Well,
And so everybody's kind of on the hot seat every year.
yeah. Well, there's a couple players you could probably ask, like Marc-Andre Fleury, right? I mean, he
Yes.
was being beloved in that city and kind of being the face of the franchise and playing as well as he did and winning Vezinas and, going to the Stanley Cup finals and, and not getting it done. I mean, they put a lot of essentially blame on him and moved on. And, so there's been a number of players that have been, we'll call it like unceremoniously moved. But it is, and that's things like if you're not performing, they just move on. So the other point that I wanted to bring up is, and maybe this is part of the reason that there is a coaching change, is the fact, and I'll come right out. I hate overtime loss points. I think that I understand why they did it in back in 10, 15 years ago, however long it's been.
Right.
It condenses the standings. It gives teams points and it keeps teams around with a chance to make the playoffs. So you have a better chance of having your team still fighting in March for a playoff spot than you would if there were no overtime points, right? So then you fight for the second point. So the Vegas Golden Knights, I think my stats are correct. They have 16 overtime losses. So 16 points, essentially, they've been able to bank by going to overtime and losing, overtime or shootout, losing. So if you look at that, I think they were at 32 wins. I think they won last night, which would have given them 33 wins. Again, anybody can correct me on my math, but it's one of the lowest win totals in the Pacific Division itself. And of course, them being in the playoff spot right now, not even the wild card playoff spot, they're in the top 3 of the Pacific,
Right.
only because of those 16 extra points. So maybe Vegas management figured, had we won half of those games, all of a sudden we're first in the Pacific. So maybe that's part of the reasoning with the coaching change, that maybe felt like there wasn't enough attention to detail, not enough sense of urgency. But it's an interesting thing to see that, wow, 16 overtime losses.
Yeah.
It's incredible, actually.
It's crazy to think about. So you go from, and I was just thinking about this, it's really an interesting dynamic because you go from Vegas, that's by no means a traditional hockey market, right? I mean, um, in the desert, in the West Coast, you name it. I mean, everything is non-hockey. It's crazy to think about, and they have that type of pressure from management that they're putting on to win every single year. Then you go to the center of the hockey universe. Minnesota would argue this, but in Toronto, Brad Treliving gets fired, the GM.
Yep.
They're not going to make the postseason. They're having a heck of a time. We know about Austin Matthews being out for the year.
Yep.
All that's happening in Toronto, but that's a city now and a country on your shoulders, Gibo, not just management. That's a whole nother set of pressures. And some players have not done well in that environment. I mean, I don't know if you can equate it to playing in New York for the Yankees or even the Dodgers now these days, right? So that being said, I'm not surprised. I mean, they're trying to figure out how to get it right in Toronto, but I think there's so much pressure to win in that city that they're trying to find the right people to put in place to make that happen. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I echo your sentiment. It is, in the NHL, probably the hardest place to play. And the reason that it's the hardest place to play is because they have not won a Stanley Cup in, I mean,
Yeah.
uh, however many years, right? I mean, uh,
You don't even need
it
to do the math.
no, I mean,
There's no math.
it's been too long, and so the fact is that, it's, I mean, the Leafs are beloved by their fans, but it's that love-hate relationship. And, they have disappointed the fans kind of year after year with teams that should have done better, certainly in the eyes of the fans and the media. I mean, you have superstars galore, and it's like, how do you not make it work? The pressure's insane, and it's not just like from the fans; it's from the media. And if you go to Toronto, even back when I played, you roll into Toronto, and there's not like five reporters or five cameras. I mean, it is a litany of people and cameras in your face, and that's when you're a visitor. So to be in that Leafs locker room having to answer questions about performance on a nightly basis. The scrutiny is incredible. And, I mean, that's why, yeah, thick skin is a must if you're going to play in that city. And, one part of it is the fans deserve better. Like the fans deserve. I mean, the team is, you know, it's not like they've got the lowest payroll in the league. It's not like they're not
No.
putting great players on their roster. It's not like they're not going out and making trades to try to make their team more competitive. I mean, so, it seemingly management has done what they think it would take for them to be successful. And I mean, successful is going to the Stanley Cup finals and winning the Stanley Cup. I think anything besides that is always going to be a disappointment in Toronto. But yeah, my old pal and teammate Brendan Shanahan, out after a number of years. Now all of a sudden, Treveling's out. Kyle Dubas was out,
Yep.
a few years ago and is kind of rebuilding things in Pittsburgh under a less microscope, certainly than in the Toronto market. So it's an interesting thing is when they win, and at some point they will win the Stanley Cup. It will silence, at least for a short term, all the things going on in Toronto. But, I mean, I've heard, much like you, rumors about who might be coming in. Doug Armstrong is the name that's being bantered about by all the pundits.
I even heard Rob Blake's
Yeah.
name's thrown out there. So,
So,
yeah, you're right. They're being
yeah.
tossed around right now.
Yeah. So, for Doug Armstrong, I mean, he's, still under contract with St. Louis Blues. Would they allow him to talk to Toronto? I mean, who knows? But Doug Armstrong is a guy who could come in and fulfill multiple roles,
Yep. Yep.
president, general manager, I mean, any part of that hockey operations, he could handle multiple roles. So I think that's why he's attractive. Maybe he needs a change. Maybe St. Louis Blues need to change. They've obviously not played well in the last few seasons. So, but it's that merry-go-round where you think about, Tortorella getting back in the saddle. You think about management that's doing the same thing, moving teams, trying to change and find a plan. And I think, like credit to Pat Verbeek and the Ducks. I mean, they decided that they needed a plan and they needed to stick to the plan. And it was going to take years to be able to have that plan come to fruition. And any Ducks fan can certainly see that the plan has come together. It's moving in the right direction. And a lot of young players have been able to, take the time to be able to progress and get better. And that's the way you build a winning franchise, right? It takes time. Now, those other markets, they already have superstars. They've kind of gone through that process. And where did they go from now, right? I mean, what does Toronto do right now, Frenchie? I mean, do they say, hey, we're going to try to rebuild? And you bring in a management to say, like, okay, hey, this is going to be tough for the next few years, but, we're going to try to rebuild. But can you rebuild with guys like Austin Matthews? I mean, I don't think you can, because talk about windows. I mean, Nylander and Matthews. I mean, these are world-class players that, need to be supported. There's Matthew Nyes. There's some great players on this team. So I think it'll be interesting to see, who comes in and can push the right buttons. And, the fate of Craig Berube is still out there. Will he return as coach? Will he not? That's to be seen.
It's patience, right? And that's the big word. And that's
Yeah.
something that the Ducks were able to have finally.
Yeah.
And they were trying to retool and not rebuild. They're trying to play out Getsy's tenure with the Ducks and a
Yep.
couple of these guys, trying to hang on to Kessler for as long as they could, trying to hang on to some of these veteran guys that they had
Yeah, Corey
that were like
Perry,
Corey Perry, what can we do? Even Gibby, for a while there, trying to like we got these guys, Hampus, Manson before Verbeek came in to get rid of
yeah,
those guys.
yep,
Um, so yeah, they were trying to like we got these pieces. Let's see if we can make another run at this. But I mean, so the Ducks had patience. Finally, they said we got to do this. Ownership had patience with Pat, and thank goodness you're seeing the fruits of that patience now. Pat
yep.
has pushed the right buttons for the most part. The prospects are turning into stars. Things are moving in the right direction. Fans are happy again. The building is full. Things are going well. They were able to show that patience. With Toronto, they won 108. They had 108 points last year, and they won the Atlantic. I mean, they've had patience for a long time in that city. Their patience has run thin. So that so did to what you're saying is now did they peak out at 108 points and they couldn't perform in that postseason, got beaten second round by the Panthers who ended up winning the whole thing?
Well, I mean, look,
Yeah, I
I
don't know.
mean, it's the curse, right? It's the curse of winning the President's Cup, right? The best team in the league. You've probably overachieved and played, you know, probably too hard throughout the course of the year. And, what you get in return is usually a first or second round knockout. I mean, we've seen it recently with Boston Bruins, right? Set a record for wins and points, and they were knocked out by Florida Panthers, who, by the way, was a really good team. Ended up going on to win the Stanley Cup that season. But the Washington Capitals, kind of the same thing. Last year, they were surprisingly like one of the top teams in the league. And all of a sudden, they don't make the run through the playoffs. So I think that every Toronto fan in particular is going to be really interested to see who gets the job to run that franchise and what that plan is going to be. I mean, in my estimation, in watching the game against the Ducks, uh, you know, they finally showed passion, right? It was a passionate game, an intense game because of Radko Gudas hit on Austin Matthews. Do I think it was a malicious hit? I don't. Unless I know Radko, you know Radko. I mean, he is just a tough player, right? And he was trying to make a hit, and the timing was off, and he caught a piece of Austin Matthews, and unfortunately, it led to an injury and out for the season. So you feel terrible for the Leafs and Austin Matthews. And Radko, stand-up guy, injured himself, is like, hey, I'm going out there and, I don't want anybody to have to take care of this for me. I will stand up and I'll do whatever it takes to be able to say like, hey, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Very commendable. But the passion of that game in Toronto is probably making Toronto fans furious, because had they played with that kind of intensity and passion for a good chunk of the season, Toronto would be in a much better place, and I'm sure they would be a playoff team. John Tavares looked great. He's had a great season, and I just think they've lacked, excuse me, that intensity all year long. And I know that fans are probably happy to see that, hey, they stepped up for Austin Matthews, but we've all been online and reading comments, and a lot of the fans are like, yeah, great. Where were you, in that game
Yep.
when it happened? Nobody stood up. Now, obviously, Gudas was taken out of that game with the 5-minute major, but there still was an opportunity, to kind of send a message, and they didn't do it. So is it better late than never? I suppose in one sense, but I think it's, for the fans, I think there was probably a lot of soul searching by that team, and why they didn't do something when they had the chance back then and they had to wait for the matchup.
So so then that's interesting as we put a bow on this topic here. It's like so you have a locker room that's hanging out in the postseason position in Vegas that's gone stale, according to Mark Stone. They get Tortorella, who's a firecracker. You get him in there, and then you're talking about a Toronto team that's just now playing with passion, right?
Yep.
So who does it fall on? Does it fall on the guys in the room, or does it fall on the guy behind the bench to get the guys in the room going, or does it fall on upstairs all and trickle all the way down? We've heard that phrase down before. So it's going to be interesting to see how Toronto moves forward from here, and what happens in Vegas is going to be very intriguing. Before we end our hockey conversation, I do want to touch on Macklin Celebrini, and I haven't had a chance to watch him since he's been in the National Hockey
Oh,
League.
he's
And
pretty good.
I've heard rumors that
pretty
he's good. And fun that he's in the Pacific, to be able to, have fun from a fan perspective, but not fun necessarily from a Ducks perspective because he's so darn good. He hits the century mark in points. He becomes only the 7th teenager in NHL history to do so. He is fun to watch. Is he? I mean, stupid question, Captain Obvious here. Is he that good, Kibo? I mean, this kid, he was Team Canada in the Olympics, and he was a standout on an all-star team too.
I think his coming out party really was his performance in the Olympics. I think people know his name. They know he was first overall pick. They know he's good. Being out on the West Coast, I think a lot of people on the East Coast don't necessarily follow what happens out here. But I think the coming out party was certainly the Olympics, and he's the real deal. And I think a lot of people have talked about Connor Bedard being that next generational player, who is an excellent player in his own right, of course. But I think that Celebrini has kind of leapfrogged Bedard as that next great NHL player.
I would say so.
It's great for hockey, right? You need these new young stars. I mean, the Ducks have Leo Carlsson and Cutter Gauthier, and you have to have that next generation of talent that keeps fans engaged. And I think the battle of like Southern California or the California coast between the Kings, Ducks, Sharks, because they're all going to be battling it out for the next decade of making playoffs with these great players playing against each other. An interesting tidbit: Cutter Gauthier has 12 goals in the month of March, and he's climbed up the ranks of history with the Anaheim Ducks. I think Corey Perry is the most at 15 goals, but he's tied Teemu Selanne and some other great names. So the other tidbit is I believe Cutter Gauthier has the most goals since the Olympic break. And that's saying a lot. So we got some great young talent here in
he's
the
knocking
NHL,
on the door of 40, right? Is he knocking on the door of 40? He's
Yeah.
that close. He's a couple away.
38 on the power play the other night. So yeah, I mean, 40 would be a tremendous milestone. I think we did a stat, and we had to go back to, I think Corey Perry was the last Ducks player to hit the 40-goal mark. And I mean, I think it was like, we talked about it. My memory's not so good, but I think it was like the 13-14 season. So it's been a while. And so, yeah, what an accomplishment that would be. And of course, as you said, Immaculate Celebrini hitting the century mark, which is, I mean, man, that's a rare feat in the NHL these days.
Gibo, we're moving fast here on the program.
We love it.
As we move from the ice to the diamond, there's some news that popped up, and I thought this would be an intriguing conversation to get your 2 cents on it, because certainly I have an opinion on this. As we, the Seattle Mariners up the coast from us, they have a kid, Colt Emerson. He is reported, as of today that we signed this podcast, to sign a guaranteed $95 million 8-year contract, and he is yet to play a big league baseball game. 20 years old. I believe he's ranked the number 2 overall prospect in baseball. But it's guaranteed. 95 mil, 20-year-old, has yet to play in the big leagues. And as we all know, I don't know. I know because I've been around it. I've heard, I've talked to people about it. But the transition from whatever level you're playing in any sport, whether it be hoops, football, hockey, baseball, to make that next step, it's different. It's different playing in the best league in the world, whether NHL, MLB, NFL, whatever it may be, NBA. What are your thoughts before I chime in here? To guarantee a 20-year-old at 95 mil over 8 years who is yet to play in the big leagues.
All right. So if I missed it, where is he currently playing? Is he in the minor leagues, or
he's
is
the
he
minors? He's in AAA, I believe.
He's in AAA.
Yeah.
How many years in AAA?
Not many. I think he played AA. He played AA last year. He split between AA and AAA. He's had some injuries that he's been working through as well, but he's kicking things off. I think he kicked off the season this year going 5 for 14 with a couple bombs. So, I mean, he's in around 400 to kick off the season. But again, it is AAA. There's a difference between AAA and the big leagues. I mean, things are different. And he was on the cusp of making the Mariners team in spring training. He had a good spring, didn't make the club, but that didn't stop them from locking him up with this deal. So there you go.
Hey, you know how we end our show? Good
Good
for
for
us.
him.
Well, you know
Good
what?
for him.
Good for him. Listen, I'm a fan of any time players can sign a really nice contract and give themselves some security, give themselves an opportunity to not feel too much pressure to be able to to progress. Um, it's a risk, without a doubt. I mean, for any player, I'll just equate it to signing a unproven player that's going to play in the NHL or hope to play in the NHL, and you sign them to an 8-year deal, and there's a chance that it never works. Now, you got to think between the scouting department, coaching staff, the management, ownership, that this is something where it was not taken lightly, that they've done all
Oh
their
God,
homework,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Physical examinations, history of injuries, the severity of injuries. So I would think that they feel very confident that this is a player that's going to, continue to improve and be a huge part of their organization at some point.
Yeah, you don't wanna use the word "can't miss" though, right? That's like that's taboo. Yeah, look at
Hey,
you, you're
hey, hey,
choking now on your
yeah,
water.
yeah, don't make me choke on that.
You can't you
Can't
can't
miss
say that.
prospect. Yeah.
I okay, so I will say this. Yes, it is a risk, but I understand why it's happening. And because these salaries are crazy. I mean, guys in baseball are making, between 35 and 50 mil a year, if your name's not even Shohei Ohtani. You just defer it if you're Shohei. Um, but but yeah, so I get it. You lock them up early so then you don't have to, these and if you gamble right, and like you said, the research has been done, um, it's the character, it's the research. It's almost like he's been in this combine for the last 2 years, right? Where you're doing
Yeah.
all the research and everything, making sure you're gonna invest this kind of money into this kid. Um, Certainly, you believe in him, but it will certainly do you if you hit it right, it will it will pay dividends down the road where you're not locked up. I mean, it could be with incentives, it could be 130 mil. But
I mean,
that's a short but
yeah,
comparatively to some of these guys making, what, 500 million a year, 3 to 5 not 500 a year. They're signing these $500 million contracts,
yeah.
excuse me. It's it's an investment and a risk that I see teams in a smaller market team like Seattle, hopefully it pays off because that's something that will help them down the road, not being in this major market.
Well, you're seeing it in all sports. I mean, you can, obviously equate it to the NHL right now. Rookies coming off their entry level contracts. We've seen it with a number of players with the Ducks, but across the league, where if those players play well in the 2 or 3 year entry level contract, they're looking to sign them to the max, 7 or 8 years, and it's a contract that as a player, you know, and you might, I mean, in the NHL, you play 82 games a season. So if you play 2 years, you play every game, you're playing around 164 games, give or take, which is not a lot. But then all of a sudden you get offered, a 7 or 8 year deal, and they're going to pay you, $6 million a year. And you're like, oh, I don't know, like for like $48 million. And this is hockey money, right? This isn't baseball money. At age, 22 or 21 or 23 or whatever you are, like it's hard to say no to that money. It's guaranteed. Something happens on the ice and your career ends, like you're going to make that money for,
Mhm.
for the term of your contract. So, and it does protect, ownership and management saying, if we don't sign him to the max, for what we can get right now, then when he's, if you do a bridge 2 or so year deal and then they blow it out of the water, well, now you're paying that player,
Yep.
exponentially more money. So from a management point, I get it. I think hockey's followed suit and trying to lock guys in, and they're okay because you can budget with the salary cap and you can slot these players in knowing that, like, hey, for the next, 6, 7, 8 years, there's certainty of the number going toward the cap. And unfortunately the cap is increasing in the NHL. So, but yeah, to roll it back to baseball, I mean, it's an interesting thing. I don't think it's a bad move, unless he just never plays or is a very average player.
And there's no cap in baseball, and that's why that's another reason why I think there's a threat of a work stoppage happening after the season. So I again, that kind of plays into all that, and I kind of get it. And by the way, too, 20-year-old kid, 95 guaranteed in the bank. I
Yeah.
mean, and we kind of have fun with this when these big contracts are put out there. I mean, how much do you need, right? Like, how much do you need? He is set for life. I mean, that's
Yeah.
at 20 years old, you are set for life. That is unbelievable.
Now,
And you just hope, and I'll finish it by saying this. You just hope too, you talk about motivation, like these kids are chomping at the bit to get the big leagues, improve themselves. And then now you have another side of the equation where you have a 20-year-old kid now with 95 million guaranteed in the bank,
yeah.
keeping that motivation high. Now you have to, is the pressure now there to perform to that contract? Does he feel that pressure? And how will he perform against that pressure? Those are questions, again, back to my combine reference. They've done their research. They think this kid can handle it.
Motivation is such a key factor in performance. I always found that, when the pressure was on, I think, athletes step up to the plate, no pun intended, of course. But I think it's that motivating factor, that knowing that, your performance is directly tied of what your next contract might look like. So is there some complacency signing long-term deals where you have guaranteed money? For sure. I mean, I think, this particular player might look at it, Frenchie, in a couple of years and become an all-star and go, God, I didn't bet enough on myself.
Right.
It was really hard to say no to the money because, like you're saying, it's life-changing and you never know anybody's circumstances in life. And, I mean, hey, if somebody walked up to either one of us today and said, hey, you're really great at what you do, we're willing to give you, X amount of money. You're giving up a bigger contract if you become really great. I think most reasonable people will take the security. There are people who are very risky and will bet on themselves. But yeah, that's going to be the question, I think, is how do you keep him motivated to be able to get to where he probably expects to get to and where the team expects him to get to without him being like, oh, man, they're going to pay me regardless. So, I think that's the internal battle, is making sure that, like, hey, I'm set financially, but I have all these goals and dreams I want to accomplish on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen it. And you mentioned that there's been guys who bet on themselves. They turn down an 8-year deal and they say, no, I want more. I'm gonna take a 1 year, and then it goes sideways.
Yeah.
And then it's like, why didn't you take
John Klingberg?
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah. I was going to say former Ducks defenseman with the Dallas Stars turned it down.
Yeah. I personally, and I don't know this for whatever, but the rumor has always been that it was, part of his team that suggested that he could get more. And when he didn't get more, they said,
the team sometimes, right?
Yeah. Everybody lost in that situation because I'm sure the whatever percentage he's paying his agents and lawyers and whatever, went down considerably. So yeah, they all lost on that deal, but certainly John did the most.
All right. Well, you know what, fans, you didn't lose because you had us for 50 minutes. I don't know. So hopefully it's a win-win for everybody here today on this edition of the Mask and the Mic.
Yes, it is a win-win.
It is a win-win. Yeah. Hamilton Continentals are the NCAA Division III men's ice hockey champions for the first time in their history. Congratulations. Bring it all back. It all comes back to Hamilton.
Full circle, yes.
We will have, maybe not next podcast, but certainly there will be a mantle with merch. And we will celebrate Hamilton from here on out, I would imagine. Efforting a very special guest for our next podcast. I'm not going to say anything because we are going on location for this one. And we will have that for you next week. But Gibo, great stuff again. And don't forget, folks, you can catch the podcast on the Mask the Mic YouTube channel, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And make sure you give us a follow on our Instagram at The Mask and The Mic. Gibo, well done, sir, and congrats on your Hamilton Continentals.
Oh, I'm popping bottles still, baby.
And you know what? Good for you.
Yeah.
And good for them.
Yeah. And as we always say, and good for us.